Do you remember a few months ago when Notion released Notion Calendar and we were all collectively disappointed with it?
This totally sucks.
I even filmed a video about all the features that I did not like and said that I was going to be sticking with Google Calendar. Well, on that video, a viewer commented and said, "Have you tried Morgen Calendar?" Now, I had never heard of Morgen Calendar, but she said, "I think this app has a lot of the things that you felt like were missing with Notion Calendar." So I gave it a shot. I've been using it for a few months, and I am impressed. So that is what I'm going to share with you today, how I am using Morgen Calendar, how it convinced me to finally step away from my trusty Google Calendar, and I'm going to share everything you need to know on how to get started with it and how I use it with Notion, because that is the most powerful integration that I think Morgen has. Now, this video is not sponsored by them, but they did give me a discount code if you want to try them out. You can have a completely free trial just to test everything, and then if you decide you love it as much as I do, make sure you use the code Kalyn15 on an annual subscription because it will get you 15% off. If you're new here, my name is Kalyn, and on this channel we dive into all things planning, productivity, habits and routines, and of course Notion, which is my favorite digital organization system. So if you have not done so already, make sure you subscribe. It takes just 2 seconds and you'll be part of the fam. When you first sign up for Morgen is going to prompt you to connect a calendar. Now remember, with Notion Calendar, they only allowed us to use Google Calendar with it. So those who used Outlook were completely left out in the cold. Morgen has 6 calendar app options, so I'm sure you're probably using at least one of them that you can then connect to Morgen. Then the next step is going to be to connect where you keep your tasks. So they integrate with about 6 different task apps, including our favorite Notion, and they just announced that they integrate with ClickUp, so you can transfer your ClickUp tasks over to Morgen if that is the productivity app that you use. They just released that after I had taken the screenshot. This just goes to show you that Morgen is truly invested in improving their own technology product. And when you're investing your time and all the things that you have to keep track of into a software, you want to make sure that the team behind it is willing to keep it up, introduce new features, get rid of bugs and all of that. And Morgen even has like a roadmap of things that are coming out and a lot of feature requests that you can even go in and upvote if you want to see that in Morgen, which I think is really cool. I know a lot of you are also using Notion as your master task list. So if you go ahead and connect that to Morgen, just know that they're going to take you through some mapping of the properties to make sure that you're getting the tasks that you actually want to see in Notion. So you can say whether you want tasks just assigned to you, like if you're on a team, or if you want all of your tasks to show in there, you're going to map the due date, maybe a description if you have that. So just go through depending on the properties that you have so Morgen can read it correctly. Then when Notion imports your tasks and events, you're going to arrive on a very brightly colored screen, which I was like, I'm not sure about this. These colors might be a deal breaker for me. Thankfully, we can change them. You can go in and customize the hex codes. So let me show you quickly how to do that. If you go up here on the calendar icon, you can click Manage Calendars and then click on the 3 dots, and here's where you can change the calendar color to one of the options that they have, or you can go to this drop down over here and put in your own hex code. This is something that Notion Calendar did not allow us to do. They had 6 different colors that you could choose from that were more of like a pastel-y neon color. I was not loving it. You can bring over the colors from Google Calendar, but again, it wasn't the exact hex code. It was kind of like a lightened neon version of it. So I'm really glad that Morgen has integrated this into their calendar. If you want the hex codes that I use, I just love to open my calendar and have it be really soft and soothing. There's a free download link below that you can click on and you'll get the exact colors that I use for my calendar. Let's move into how Morgen actually works. So once you've got everything set up and connected, you have a typical calendar here. I felt like with Morgen, Everything was a lot more intuitive than Notion Calendar. Like, I consider myself pretty technologically savvy, and I was really struggling to find buttons for things and like, okay, I want to add an event. How do I do that? It just didn't make a lot of sense. With Morgen, it makes complete sense. There are two different ways that you could add a new event. So you can click on a blank spot, double click, and you can type in your event. You could turn it into a task if you wanted to. More on tasks a little bit later. You can do the start and end date, or it can be an all day type of event. And you can also add a location, or if you had a Zoom link that you were doing a meeting and you needed to be able to access that link quickly. So that's how you add a new event on the calendar itself. You can also go to this command bar, which is this little arrow and a slash underneath, underscore, I guess it would be called. You can click that and you can just describe the event that you want to have. So hair appointment and maybe May 19th at 1 p.m. And you can just click enter and it automatically adds it to your calendar. So super, super easy. And just like any other digital calendar app, you can drag and drop events if things get rescheduled. It's super easy. You can also shorten or lengthen the event by dragging at the bottom or at the top, and you can right click on the event and just delete it if you want to get rid of it entirely. The arrows up here on the top are going to take you forward and backwards through the calendar. You also have a mini calendar down here on the bottom left that you can use those arrows to go back and forth if you needed to check a date in the far future. The other thing I really like that Morgen has is the ability to track other time zones. So if you live in a different time zone than your family, or you're on a team that has time zones all over the world, then you want to know like what time is it where they are located. So up here, I'm currently in Mountain Standard Time, but my family is in Eastern Standard Time. So I've added the extra time zone there. You could add as many as you wanted to. And then what you can do is you can hover over to the left of the time, and it's always going to tell you the time in the time zones that you want to track. You can also check the time zones on each event. If you just do shift and hover over the event, that will pop up the time zones as well. Oh, one more really cool thing that I think you guys will like that I have not seen this, I don't think, in other calendars. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But when you go to the preferences section, you can say when you want your calendar grid to start and end. Like, I don't need anything probably before 6 a.m., but I just started at 5 a.m. just in case, you know, maybe I have an early morning meeting or I have to be somewhere at that time. And then a time grid end, I don't need anything after 11. So you can specify that there, and then you don't have all this white space on the top or the bottom of your calendar, which is really neat. So overall, when it comes to calendar planning and adding and deleting events and moving things around, very, very intuitive. Now we're going to shift into tasks, which is where I think Morgen really shines, especially in their integration with Notion. Tasks are automatically sorted into 4 different categories on the left-hand side: overdue, due today, tomorrow, and due soon. I really like that recently they put in the due tomorrow grouping, because it used to just say due today and then due upcoming, and I really like that when I plan my day the night before, I can just see what I have due tomorrow and can drag and drop those onto my calendar. You can also change the properties that you want to see on your tasks. So when you go to the 3 dots on the top right of that section, and then you can see all the labels here. So it's pulling in certain properties from your task database. So you can decide whether you want to see energy, priority, whatever properties you have. Due date, I don't feel like is quite necessary because I just focus on the due today and due tomorrow sections. And then you can reorder them by priority or any other properties that you have from Notion. Then you can also add groupings. So if you wanted to, in addition, see when items were due, you can group by maybe a priority level, like what are your high priority tasks? And this is pulling in all the tasks from your database. Because Morgen syncs with Notion, anything that you add to your task list in Notion, so if I added something here, let's just for kicks, We'll add a business task and we'll change the due date to tomorrow. Example task. That will show up then in Morgen. So I'm just going to refresh. If it doesn't show up right away, just hit the little refresh button up top. It should pop in here just a few seconds. And there it is, example task. However, if you add a task into Morgen, it is not going to sync with Notion. So you cannot like add a task in here and have it be in your Notion database. You just click task and then it's basically a baked in native task to Morgen. So that's what I have here. Let me delete that. That's what I have with a workout here. Like I don't have a workout task in my Notion database, but I do have it in here so I can just copy it and move it around and it doesn't clutter up my Notion task list because I don't need to see it in here necessarily. I just need to see it on my calendar. So there's two different ways that you can kind of use tasks. And the part that I briefly mentioned earlier was dragging and dropping tasks. This is probably like my favorite part. So you can just take a task, you can drag it over here, and then you can expand it shorten it depending on how long you think that task is going to take. It has a cute little Notion icon on there. You can double click and you can go and change the calendar that it is associated to. So this IG content is for open roading. So I'm going to confirm that I want to move it to that calendar so it has the different color code. You can set up default calendars in your preferences. So let's see, preferences, and then default calendar for like events and appointments. You can say which one you want it to be. Default calendar for tasks. Mine is usually at Tiger Time. Occasionally, I like the open roading task. I will change it to that. And if you haven't heard of open roading yet and no idea what it is, that is my travel account, and I'm going to shamelessly plug it because we do full-time RV life and it's really fun, and I think you should follow us over there. One of the big differences that maybe it was a big annoyance to me about Notion Calendar, maybe not as much for other people, but when I would add tasks to the calendar and add like a time, so like let me actually pull up Notion Calendar, you can see every task that it pulls in is automatically an all-day task. And then I can drag it into the time slot that I want. But when I do that back in Notion, it adds a beginning time and an end time, which I was like, why? This is not necessary. In Morgen, it doesn't do that. All I have is create 3 pieces of IG content here, and over here, 3 pieces of IG content. Like it's not adding any time to the due date, which I just really prefer. It's a little thing, but little things make a big difference to me. And then probably my favorite thing about Morgen is when you check off a task, you get a little confetti burst, which I think is so cool. And then it stays on your calendar. So like Notion Calendar would completely delete the task off your calendar. And I wanted to see, no, like my day was full of tasks. I want to see what I accomplished. Morgen keeps it on the calendar. And then over here, you'll notice it's gone. It's gone from this list. So that sync between Morgen and Notion, if you check something off in Notion, it will check it off in Morgen. If you check it off in Morgen, it'll check it off in Notion. A couple things you want to keep in mind though, where the sync doesn't quite match up, is if you drag and drop a task in Morgen to a different day, it's not going to update the due date in your Notion database. That's just how it is. So that's just a little thing you have to kind of remember. The other thing is if you want to do multiple work sessions for a specific task, you can, but actually checking all of those tasks off is a little bit of a, not challenge, but it's just like a few extra steps. So let me go to actually today, and let's say that I had a couple sessions of filming this video just for kicks. So I'm going to right click and copy that and say I'm also going to film it tomorrow. So I'm going to paste it. Now, when I check off this task here, it's not going to check it off the other work session. And in Notion, it's not going to check it off either. because there's still a work session that's open. But if I check off this one, it's still not going to check it off in Notion. Like, it's not recognizing that I've checked off all the work sessions. What you have to do is go into tasks and actually do the parent task. Check off the parent task over here on the left-hand side. It will remove it from the task list, and then it also, removed it from here. So it's just a little funny, something again to keep in mind as you're working with tasks in Morgen. Not a super big deal, but just so you know, if you create multiple work sessions for a specific task, you have to check off the parent task to check off all the work sessions. You also need to be aware of how recurring tasks work in Morgen if you keep them inside Notion. So I have a whole video about recurring tasks in Notion. There's two methods. There's the automatic database template method, or there's the more manual change the due date every time method, which I do the due date every time. So when it comes to Morgen, the problem with that is I have already scheduled that item in the past. So let me, as an example, we'll go to today. So I'm going to clean, what did I have tomorrow? Clean RV. You can see this little icon here. All sessions in the past have been completed and scheduled, but it's still showing open here in Notion because all I did was change the due date. But Morgen is recognizing that as like, no, you did that in the past. It's already been scheduled. So this isn't a problem if you just keep the scheduled toggle on. So under the three dots, show scheduled tasks. Ideally, I would love to not keep that toggled on because I like knowing that, okay, like I have 2 more tasks that I need to schedule for tomorrow, and then all my tasks are scheduled for the day. But when I show scheduled tasks, like then it's like I can't at a glance see what I have scheduled and what I don't. So that's just a little something. Again, another thing to be aware of is that if you just change the due dates in Notion, you need to have scheduled tasks toggled on so you can see that those tasks appear in your task list in Morgen, and then you can drag and drop them. Like I usually clean a Saturday morning and it takes like an hour and a half. So there we go. And I'll just, for kicks, because I'm actually scheduling it right now, I'll just change it to my home calendar so it has that color code. Confirm, there we go. The last thing about tasks, and one of the major differences between Morgen and Notion Calendar that I actually like for Morgen more, is in Notion Calendar, when I click on the 3 pieces of, or create content creation dashboard, or any one of these tasks, I have no context for that task. I have only when it's due and the name of the task. I don't know the priority level. I don't know the energy level. I don't know what category it's from. I can't see any of that until I click this open in Notion button, which is like, I should be able to see that. Morgen, on the other hand, has somehow figured out how to show the properties and Notion hasn't. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So over here, you can see the priority level, you can see the energy level. I have the category toggled on, again, those 3 dots, and you can say which labels you want to display. Like, that is important to me because I want to know, we've talked about energy management in the past. I have a whole video about it. You can go watch that. I think you should, because it talks about why energy is so much better than time management. I need to see where my high energy tasks are because I need to connect them to my high energy time blocks, which is between, like, it's right now, between 10 and 12. That is when I want to be filming because I am at my best energetically wise. And so to be able to connect those, I need to be able to see that context for the task. So I know I'm getting a little bit angsty about it, but it's something that really, really bothered me in Notion Calendar that Morgen has figured out how to solve. Okay, moving on from tasks, let's talk about the booking page with Morgen. So this does not deviate really any from Notion Calendar's booking page. I find they work the same. They're basically the same. I am doing meetings with clients where I'm doing Notion custom builds with them. Sometimes I'm talking with other companies to be affiliates with them, and we need to connect at some sort of time. And between all these different time zones, it's just easier to be able to say your availability and to send a link instead of using an outside app like Calendly that you then have to pay for. So to be able to share your availability, you can just click this open invite button up top, and then it's going to show everything on your calendar that doesn't already have a time block in it. So I could just say, hey, I'm available from this time to this time. I'm also available from here. And actually there might be 1 hour on Tuesday that I'm available. Then I can go over to the left-hand side and say, okay, do I want this meeting to be a 30-minute meeting, 45-minute, 1 hour? And then when I share the booking link, it's going to share the available time slots in hour or half-hour increments. So I can just say a title for this. So I'll just say affiliate meeting, and that's done. And now, oh, I thought I already did the title. I apparently did the description. So affiliate meeting, and then I can create and copy that link, and I can just send that to whoever I want to meet with, and they can book a time in any of those available slots. So I love, love, love that option, the fact that it's integrated into Morgen and we don't have to use a separate app for it. I almost forgot, it also integrates with Zoom. So you can also click like the conferencing thing, you can connect it to Zoom, or you can connect it to Google Meet, whichever meeting integration that you wanted to add there. So when it comes to the meeting time, you can just click that link and go straight into the meeting. You don't have to go to your email and find the link that's buried in there. The last feature that I want to talk about is Morgen Assist. And this is like an AI powered thing. And I know like AI is what taking over the world at this point, but it can do some really cool things. So I haven't played around with this a ton, but I have integrated the Morgen Assist buffer time. So when you open Morgen Assist, you have some different workflows that you can add to your calendar to be like, hey, if I have a meeting, can you please give me 30 minutes buffer time after and 30 minutes buffer time before? Or this is also really cool. There is a travel one that you can do. So automated travel time. So if you put in an appointment and you have your address that you're coming from, now you have to do this when you actually create the workflow. So this is something where I do wish that I could just do my departure location, like not set it up at the beginning. Like I could just do departure location when I actually add a travel event, because I live in an RV, we travel all the time, the distances change. But if you live in a house and you're constantly departing from your house, then you can just put your location address in there, and then it will automatically add travel buffer time to each end of your event, which is just so cool and so smart. So let me show you what it looks like for a meeting that I had. This happens with meetings where there are at least 2 people involved. I think I had a meeting with a Notion client. Here we go. Okay, this was like an affiliate partnership meeting, and I just have it adding 30 minutes of buffer time after, because generally like I'm fine before a meeting. I don't need to like super prepare like 15 minutes before, but afterwards, because I'm an introvert, I just need to take a deep breath. So it blocks that off in my calendar for me. Even though I've been using Morgen for like 3 months now, I think it is, I'm sure I've missed a cool feature. Like I said, even by the time I publish this, they'll probably have a new feature launched, because they are just continually investing into their app. But I am so impressed, you guys, and I think it is way, way, way better than Notion Calendar. I said before, I don't think Notion Calendar had all their ducks in a row, and they launched too early to get it out there before like understanding what their Notion user customers actually wanted and needed. And so it left room for Morgen to come in. And now I'm like, there's no point for me to go to Notion Calendar at all, even if they improve it, because Morgen pulled me away from Google Calendar, and I thought that would absolutely never happen. The fact, like the one thing that was missing from Google Calendar for me was the integration with Notion tasks and being able to check off tasks. in my time block because I love time blocking. I love being able to realistically see what I can do in a day. And it's very surprising when you start time blocking things like, oh wait, I only have room for like 4 or 5 things, not the 11 that I had planned. So I love that we can just drag and drop a Notion task into Morgen. It just really improves the productivity workflow between tasks and calendar scheduling. Oh, and they also have a mobile app as well, which I was really sad that maybe I wouldn't have the same like little widget icon on my phone that I did with Google Calendar, but I can have that with Morgen. I can have that with the Morgen app. I can see it right on my home screen, what time blocks are coming up next. And that just is like, it's so nice to be able to pull that up and see at a glance what's coming up. And it even has my tasks in there as well. And I actually like the way it looks better than Google Calendar did. If you want to try Morgen, Morgen does have a free plan that comes with just one calendar integration, so you can play around with it, see if you like it, if it feels good. And then if you want to upgrade and integrate your task list from Notion, then you'll need to sign up for the Pro version. But again, you can get 15% off with the code Kalyn15. That'll save you a little bit of money. But I think you're going to love Morgen. Like, I think this is changing the game. And I think more and more people are going to ditch Google Calendar like I did. I never thought I would, but here we are. Now, before you go, if you work from home like I do and you have trouble staying focused, make sure you watch this video next because I share 10 of my top productivity tips if you work from home. And some of them I don't see other people like doing or talking about. So go check that out.